Life is filled with hardship and pain. And with that comes a lot of sadness and tears. Sometimes we can even get really angry with God. Today we're going to see King David as he questions God. Like, how long is this going to last? Join us for the answer to that question. All right, welcome to our Psalm series. Glad you're joining us today. Today I want to talk about the hardship of life. And some of you get this because maybe for you, you've been physically ill for a long time. You've been sick for weeks, months, years. Maybe for you, it's people are just out to get you. And it's just taken so long, nothing's ever changing. Maybe for you, you're being sued by someone. That seems like a never-ending battle. Maybe for some, it's going through a painful divorce that seems to be taking forever. Maybe you lost your job and you can't pay the bills. See, sometimes when bad things happen in our life, we just want it to stop. Hence, the clocks today. Tick tock, God, we really need you to step in and do something. We're tired of the waiting. Those clocks can't go fast enough. They're just too slow for our life. But see, sometimes when bad things happen, we go, okay, God, I get it, but have I done something to upset you? Like, are you mad at me? Is that why all of these bad things are happening to me? And that seems to be the starting point for our psalm today. Now, for this particular psalm, we actually don't know what exactly was going on at this particular time. Maybe it was after his affair with Bathsheba. Maybe it was after Absalom, his son's rebellion and taking over the throne. Maybe it's when Saul was chasing him. Whatever it was, I think that David's like, I'm kind of over all of it. Now, most people, a lot of rabbis actually think that this was written when David was running from Saul. And if so, it makes total sense that he's completely and utterly confused about everything. And the reason why is because God told David that David would be the next king. The prophet Samuel came and anointed him, but David was really young and he's like, hello, there's a king already in Israel. His name is Saul. But as time went on and David killed Goliath, what happened is people started loving David more than Saul. And so Saul was chasing David all over Israel, trying to kill him because he was jealous and fearful of losing his throne. So what happened is David finally had enough. He had enough of it and he decided to go into Philistine territory. Now I want you to think about that because guess where Goliath that he killed with the sling and the stones, Goliath was from Gath in Philistine country. 1 Samuel 27 says this, verse 1, and David said in his heart, now I shall perish someday by the hand of Saul, because he's really tired of running. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines, and Saul will despair of me to seek me any more in any part of Israel, so I shall escape out of his hand. David is so fearful that he runs into enemy territory and is going to live there. I mean, think about this. That would be like if you're an Iranian person and Iran and Iraq are fighting, but you decide that you're going to cross the border and fight for the Iraqis instead of the Iranians. Like that just doesn't seem really smart. But that's exactly what David does. Verse 2 says this, then David arose and went with 600 men who were with him to Achish, the son of Maoch, king of Gath. Now the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 1 full year and 4 months. David is gone for 1 year and 4 months. But he's not doing anything that he's supposed to be doing. He was supposed to be working for the king, and the king was against Israel. But David was lying to the king. This king who took him in, who trusted David. David was supposed to be raiding the people of Israel, and that's what he told the king he was doing, but in reality he wasn't. He was raiding the enemies of Israel. Verse 8 says, and David and his men went up and raided the Geshurites, the Girzites, the Amalekites, for those nations were the inhabitants of the land from old, as you go to Shur, even as far as the land of Egypt. Whenever David attacked the land, he left neither man nor woman alive, but took away the sheep and oxen, the donkeys and camels, and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. Then Achish would say, where have you made a raid today? And David would say, against the southern area of Judah, or against the southern area of the Jerahmeelites, or against the southern area of the Kenites. David would save neither man nor woman alive to bring news to Gath, saying, lest they should inform on us, saying, this David did. And thus was his behavior all the time he dwelt in the country of the Philistines. So Achish believed David, saying, he has made his people Israel utterly abhor him, and therefore he will be my servant forever. Achish had plans for David. He wanted David to go against Israel. So if this were the time period of this psalm when it was written, it would make sense. Because David was doing everything wrong. He was lying. He was living with the enemy. He was living a double life. And I'm sure that he knew that God would never be okay with that. Now, we don't know exactly if that was the backdrop to this psalm, but it's actually a good thing that we don't, because Psalms is an interesting book of the Bible. It's this place where we can pour out our heart to God. We can pray to him. Psalms is a place where people are hurting. People don't know what's going on. People are confused. And so whatever part of David's life this was, he felt the exact same way that you and I feel a lot of times. The difference is that when David prays in the Psalms, he doesn't pray like we do in America. Our prayers are usually this: hey, God, I need a new house. Hey, I need a new car. Hey, God, I need a better job. I need more money. For David, his heartfelt prayer was nothing like that. His prayer was, God, I am a mess, and I need help, and I need you. Psalm 6 starts this way: to the chief musician with stringed instruments on an 8-stringed harp, a psalm of David. We always see this as these psalms begin. Remember, these are poems, or they're something that was written that was put to music to be sung in the tabernacle or the temple. Verse 1 says this: O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger, nor chasten me in your hot displeasure. It sounds like David thinks that all of the troubles that he's having really were because of sin in his life. And if it was written at this time of where he lived this double life, that would kind of make sense. But God is really awesome. And David knows that. And we see that here in this psalm. But this is what God is kind of like. And it's an illustration of a story of this man who was on a train. There was an evangelist. He was making his way home. He sat down by a young man. After a while, he noticed this man was crying. The pastor asked the boy, is there anything I can do to help you? The boy says to him, he says, Pastor, he said, 2 years ago I got really mean. I was really angry and bitter. And he said, my parents were just kind of tired of it. One day I got mad and actually hit my father in the face. My father said, son, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to tell you to leave the house. He said, it's going to break my heart. It's going to break your mom's heart, but you have to go. This behavior is unacceptable. The young man wandered around the country for some time. 3 weeks earlier, he had given his life to Jesus. He wrote a letter to his parents apologizing and asking them for their forgiveness. He told them that he would be coming through their town on the train, but he wasn't sure if he would ever be welcomed home again. So he told his parents, if you forgive me and if you want me home, put a little white rag on top of the apple tree. He said, when the train goes by, I'll see it. And if there's a white rag on top, then I will know I can come home. If there's no rag, he said, I will just keep on the train and keep going to the next town. As they approached his home, the young man asked the pastor to look and see if the white rag was on the apple tree. The preacher looked and said, son, you can relax. The apple tree is in full bloom. I never saw so many white rags tied to anything in all of my life. And that's not all. Out under the apple tree, I see a gray-haired man and woman standing with a sign saying, come home, son, welcome home, we love you. Somehow David knew that is the absolute true heart of God. Not to be angry and just be like, forever I'm just angry and mad at you for the rest of your life. Warren Wiersbe, in his commentary on Psalms, says this: when God deals with his children, usually he rebukes and then chastens, just as parents first warn disobedient children and then disciplines them. According to Hebrews 12, 1 through 13, chastening is not punishment meted out by an irate judge, but discipline given by a loving father to help his children mature. It's like the training of an athlete for a race. David thought God was angry with him, but that wasn't necessarily true. Maybe what David was going through was God just growing him up in his faith. Maybe God was trying to say, David, you need to learn my character. You need to learn how to do things the right way. Verse 2 said this: have mercy on me, O Lord, for I'm weak. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are troubled. My soul is greatly troubled. Maybe what David was going through was kind of like a warning light on our car. One of those went off on my car the other day. Change engine oil. I'm like, that is so annoying. I don't have time to go change my engine oil. But I know if I don't stop and make the time and take care of it, I'm probably going to do more damage to my car than good. Maybe for David, I don't know, his soul was troubled. Maybe this was just a warning sign for him. Maybe he was feeling really far from God. Maybe it was just his own sin, or maybe it wasn't at all. Maybe how David was feeling was God's warning light that, David, something needs to change in your life. So David responds how we usually respond to trials in our life. And it's words like this: but you, O Lord, how long? Clocks. How long? God, I just look around and it just seems to be taking forever. And we get this because we have prolonged trials in our life. And sometimes they're brought on by things that we do, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes God is just trying to teach us something and grow us up in our faith. But we hate trials and we want them to stop. But here is what I've learned. Will you give up? Will I give up? Will I give up if the trial continues? Like, will I give up on my faith if God doesn't heal me? Will I give up on my faith if I don't get better, feel better, God doesn't make my situation better? Will I give up on my faith if those people continually bother me or my circumstances are still bad? See, I think we need to learn to be okay with God's however long. However long. And however long, unfortunately, could be forever. And I get it. That's really difficult. I had lunch with one of our sons the other day, and I told him I've been kind of mad at God lately. Most of our kids struggle with OCD, and for some reason, the weather's changing. It's exceptionally difficult for a few of them. And I'm frustrated because I know God can take this away from them. I know He could heal them in just like a nanosecond. But He's not. And I feel really frustrated with Him. But then I have to go back to what the Bible says. Yes, I can do what David does and say, God, how long is this going to last? But I have to go back to 2 Corinthians 12, where Paul says this: to keep me from becoming conceited because of these surpassing great revelations, there was given to me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. He's saying, look, something bad is happening, a thorn in my flesh. No one knows what that is. Maybe it was an illness. Maybe it was an eye problem. Maybe it was a sin problem. I don't know. But he says, I begged God to take it away from me. And God didn't. You know what God said? He said in verse 9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. In other words, Paul, you are going to see me better, learn about me, trust me more, cling to me more in your weakness than you do when you have everything. He said, therefore, Paul says, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest in me. Think about that. For those of you that are struggling, I will more gladly boast that I'm going through a difficult divorce. I will most gladly boast that I've not been healed from my cancer. I will gladly boast that my life is falling apart. Why? Because I don't know, overarching, I just trust God. I believe Him. I know He's doing something. I want to be a light to those around me, even though all the bad stuff is going on. See, that should be our heart, but honestly, that takes a while to get to. Verse 4 says this, return, O Lord, deliver me. Oh, save me for what? For your mercy's sake. Don't save me and do these things for me because of me. Do it for you, God. He says in verse 5, for in death there is no remembrance of you. In the grave, who will give you thanks? See, it sounds like David was going through a time period where someone was really trying to kill him. And he's like, God, if I die, I can never serve you. I can never be king. I can never do what you're calling me to do. Don't let me die, God. I want to be here to do what you're calling me to do. Doesn't feel like that's ever going to happen. So protect me, God, because of you. He goes on and he says, because I think he's just tired of everything. I think he's at this point in his life, he's just like, God, I don't know what to do with this. I need you to save me, but I'm really tired. And I get it. Because this is how he pours out his heart to God. And when he does these next verses and says this to God, I think it's exactly how you may be feeling today and how I feel a lot of times. Verse 6, I am weary with my groaning. All night I make my bed swim. I drench my couch with tears. My eyes waste away because of grief. It grows old because of all my enemies. It's like David saying, God, I am just tired. I'm tired of it all. And I know we've all felt that way at some point. I was thinking a bit about this as a few months back, Russia invaded Ukraine. And here we saw these beautiful cities and these people just going to work and living lives like normal. And in one day, everything changed. Our boys worked for a company who had an office in the Ukraine. And they started hearing what was going on, and my heart broke for them. Because for these people, they had a normal job just like you and I, and in one day, everything changed. And I bet they're tired of it all. Their families are separated. Their towns are bombed. They don't even know where they're going to get food. And I bet so many of these Christians over there are quoting this. I am weary with my groaning. All night I make my bed swim. I drench my couch with my tears. My eyes wasted away because of grief. It grows old because of all my enemies. And I get that. But the sad part is that a lot of people stop there. They stop there. They can't get past their misery. They refuse to put God in the equation of their life. They could do something different. They could take the time to change their focus. And they could change it to this: I don't get it, but I know God is doing something. I don't get it. Because they of all people know in the Ukraine that they could die from a bomb or a gun tomorrow. But as Christians, as followers of Jesus, they, we, you, me, we have hope that most people in this world don't have. The people in the Ukraine that are followers of Jesus know if they die, they will go right smack into eternity, forever with Jesus, with no bombs, no heartache, no pain, no sadness, no death, no war. See, we all have a choice on what we're going to focus on. And when David writes psalms like this, what we learn from him is this: he always refocuses attention back to God. He pours out his heart to God. He complains to God. But then he always refocuses attention back to God. And that's a lesson for you and I. Verse 8 says this: Depart from me, all you workers of iniquity, for the Lord has heard my weeping. David knows this. God has heard my weeping. He's heard me crying. He's seen my tears. Verse 9 says, the Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord will receive my prayer. Let all my enemies be ashamed and greatly troubled. Let them turn back and be ashamed suddenly. And I believe at the end of this psalm, David had peace. He didn't know when his enemies would stop. But I do think that he learned a valuable lesson. I think he learned that during bad things that happen in our life, bad trials, that we can cling to God, that God would be there no matter what. And once you get to that point that you say, you know what, if this trial lasts me forever, it's okay. And there's a lesson that David learned. David would never quit. And I'm hoping that's our lesson today. That no matter what your trial is that you're going through in life, and you're sad and you're heartbroken and you're crying, don't quit on your faith. Let's start focusing on God and his purposes for our trial, knowing that even if our trial ends in death, we will spend eternity with him forever if we have given our life to Jesus alone. Hope that helps you today. Have a really good day.